I think somebody, the chap from BT was talking about earlier, what we discovered was, because we have a sort of pharmaceutical heritage, the washing procedures we used in our factory, for years the standards we used were pharmaceutical standards. Those are not required for products such as shampoos, but we were using those sort of very high cleaning standards for products practically that don't need such high temperatures. So we can look at this and see if we can sort of adjust our standards for different products and actually lead to a reduction in carbon footprint. So that's work yet to be done. The other important part of this message which we're promoting, which will come out in products in the summer, is addressing that 93% consumer use phase. And I think this is very important for a number of reasons. You can see the message there. You can help to using cooler water to wash your hair, cut CO2 emissions, it reduces your energy bills, and is actually better for your hair. Our hair scientists back up in Nottingham have been doing work on the sort of temperatures that people use to wash their hair, and they've actually found that people do, on average, wash their hair in too high a temperature, leading to hair damage. So we've actually got a win-win situation here. We're able to encourage people to reduce their energy use, plus actually telling them that this will actually give them a better use of the product. And so again, as I think was mentioned earlier, the potential for these sorts of messages is huge, because if everybody who buys one of our products takes note of this message, or even everybody who sort of passes through the store and sees one of the posters, thinks about it, and goes home and turns their thermostat down, we have a potential to reduce the carbon footprint nationally far greater than actually is in our products. We have a huge opportunity here to act as mentors for the nation, helping to sort of give out these sorts of messages. I think there's a lot of potential in this. As I said, this is a pilot project we've been working on with the Carbon Trust, and what's been very interesting, I've done a number of these talks at conferences over the last couple of months, and what it seems to have sparked is a very interesting debate now on how this carbon footprinting, the carbon labelling process should go forward. I think what's really encouraging to me about being involved in that debate is not only the sort of technical debate about how you actually measure your carbon footprint, what the value of labels, how a label should be developed, but also it's now raising awareness of the holistic approach that should be taken to sustainable development, and the fact that carbon footprint, if you like, carbon footprinting and carbon measurement is just a part of this debate about improving product sustainability. And I think the debate that's gone on in the last couple of months has been very exciting. And I think for the next year or so, this debate will actually enable us to actually take new directions on product development, to understand the full sustainability impact of products, and use that as a driver for innovation. Just specifically on the projects we've carried out, the trial project we carried out on the shampoo, these are some of the learnings we had from it. First of all, when you're doing a carbon footprint measurement, you must include all aspects of that product journey. I mean, as we showed you there, the consumer use phase is vitally important in the case of shampoos. It may not be so in other products. We had the options for reduction are not always in the obvious places. When we started out in this process, we expected that we would have to do a lot of work changing the ingredients in the shampoo or understanding where they were sourced from. In actual fact, the packaging had a much bigger impact. And also, I think all this requires a collection of a large amount of data. If you hark back to that diagram of carbon footprinting I showed you earlier, it looked very complex. And it was complex to start with. But once we start to build up data sets of the energy and carbon impact of various the building blocks that go into these products, then the process will become simpler. And I know from the debates which I've had recently, there is obviously an interest now in trying to sort of work together to collate this information, come up with sort of data banks of carbon measurements that people actually need to build their own carbon footprints, and that's all we're doing. There were obviously some challenges when we were doing this work. I mentioned complexity, and to say that if you want to be a pioneer in this, you have to be allowed the fact that it is going to be a complex process. It's not going to be an easy thing to do overnight with that fact you have to be very precise about this, especially if you want to make claims on products like we've done. You actually have to go into the sort of degree of detail to understand what your carbon footprint is and where the impacts are coming from. We also need to think about what tolerance levels should be set. For example, the carbon footprint of a typical shampoo is about 148 grams per 175 ml bottle. If we decide to change one of our suppliers, let's say from an ingredient, let's say from a UK supplier to one in Europe or the Far East, what impact is it going to have on that 148 grams? And if it does increase it by, or decrease it by 1 gram, should we actually have to then recalculate the whole footprint, or does it matter? And again, that's a whole subject of debate at the moment. I mentioned about the idea of coming up with common data sets for materials and processes, and I think that movement is actually starting to happen now. And how do we actually extend this carbon footprint into other products and services? If we're looking at a shampoo, how can that process be extended to something like a hairdryer, or even a car, or even a service like insurance? Can we actually use these techniques to look into other products and services? And I think very much there is a need for common standards, not only within the UK, but within Europe and internationally, to make sure that everybody who is embarking on this process of carbon footprint and carbon labelling is working to the same agenda, the same methodology. When you come down to labelling, I think there's a few challenges and a few learnings here as well. The labelling scheme's got to be tangible, it's got to be understood by consumers and relate to their needs. That's why we're using the carbon footprint logo with additional information about how consumers can help, to actually make it tangible, to make it something which they can grasp and understand. We also need to be transparent about what that labelling does cover. I mean, does it include things like the energy used to light and power our stores? Does it include consumer use? Does it include distribution networks? Because I think common standards will actually address this issue. Make sure that when a carbon label is put on the product, it does contain all those elements, basically. And I suppose the final challenge is, should we actually set out on a process of trying to carbon label everything over the next years or decades, or should we just use this carbon label as a reward for when companies and businesses actually make reductions? I think again that needs to be thought about and discussed. Is it actually going to be a value just having a carbon label on every product, or should it be actually an indicator of improvement? And finally, perhaps the biggest question is, how does carbon labelling fit into the bigger picture of sustainable development? I don't think carbon labelling is the be-all and end-all of this. I think it's got to fit into the other aspects of sustainability. To give you an example, there's a part of the debate that's going on now is, will carbon labelling disadvantage the third world because people will not want to buy products from third world countries because of the journey that they take to come to the UK, which in theory should give them a higher carbon footprint. So how do we balance the needs of the third world, the needs of imported products with perhaps a higher carbon figure? I think, again, this could be the sort of precursor to actually a sustainability measure. I mean, that's obviously very complex, but we need to think about how this fits into the overall picture of sustainable development. Okay, so I think just really as a run through the project we've undertaken, just a bit of a case study. It's been a very exciting ride, and I think we're at the start of a very interesting phase in sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, if you don't mind, Andrew, just for a couple of quick questions. Are there any questions for Andrew? Okay. I actually had a quick question for you. Oh.
Thank you very much. Thomas Euan, in Germany. Did you get any consumer market research based on the concept that you've developed? I mean, I saw the need for this kind of product based on the initial market research that you showed. Did you also get some feedback from consumers after you have developed the product?
Not as yet, because the products you're seeing will have to be going into the store in a couple of months, and so we'll be getting the feedback there. They haven't actually appeared in the store yet. But when they do, we will be getting consumer feedback. What we have been finding is that when we've been doing consumer research into new products, we're starting to ask people now, will you appreciate products with lower carbon footprints? And we're generally getting a yes coming back. But the main